How about trying something new for a change, getting involved and doing something for the environment? It's what thousands of young people are doing on this continent. And you'll be meeting some of them over the next 30 minutes. I'm Chris Lems in Lagos, Nigeria. A warm welcome to a new edition of Echo Africa. And to my colleague Sandra in Uganda.
Thank you, Chris. Now, whether it is in research, in the community, or simply at home, everyone can do something. I am Sandra Twinodio here in Kampala, and here is what is coming up this week. How a young Congolese inventor generates sustainable electricity. How a Nigerian scientist in Germany is battling antibiotic resistance. And how the endangered Sega antelopes are doing on the Kazakh steppe. But first, in a couple of weeks, the world's heads of state and the government descend on Glasgow for the COP26 UN Climate Summit. The global participants are looking for a way to keep global warming to maximum 1.5 degrees Celsius. Firm legislation and binding agreements will be needed, especially from the world's major industrialized countries. But we can all do something locally, just by looking after the environment around us. Well, we did meet 3 young people in Abidjan who are doing just that.
What scares me is that we'll reach a point where we can no longer do anything for the environment.
I wonder what this city will be like in 10, 15 or 20 years.
A synergy of actions is needed to address environmental degradation. Abidjan, Ivory Coast's economic center, is undergoing a breathtaking transformation. Construction sites seem to be everywhere, and there are new entire districts appearing too. The city now has over 5 million inhabitants. Nature is disappearing, while pollution permeates the city. Yves Landry Kwame is one of a growing number of people taking action to ensure a healthier Abidjan. In his environmental blog, he writes about the huge problem of littering. In this neighborhood, the rubbish dump has disappeared, leaving residents to improvise.
Selon vous, est-ce que c'est normal ou pas? C'est normal que ça soit là ou c'est quoi?
On sait pas ce qui s'est passé.
We don't know what happened. The container left, and now people have to come here because the place where they are supposed to deposit refuse is too far away. That's very annoying. The blogger feels that ignorance too threatens the environment. He hopes that his documentary work will raise awareness and motivate people.
More than
50% of the population of Ivory Coast is not really literate. So, a big population like that is not very aware of the environmental protection issues, ecological issues, the link between their activities and the consequences that they may be on their planet, or that there may be for their own health. Could at least a part of this waste be recycled? What looks like real stone is actually recycled plastic. Edith Kwasi herself developed the concept. During her master's studies in environment and plastic waste management, she asked herself how she could help solve Abidjan's garbage problem in concrete terms.
I checked everywhere to see what we can do with plastic waste, especially in Ivory Coast, and the means that we have at our disposal. I discovered that there are physical products available, such as paving stones, bricks, and many other things, such as granules.
And they are in big demand. One hotel has had its driveway paved with recycled plastic bricks. Edith Kwasi founded her own company in 2019, and now she has 7 employees. She's convinced that young entrepreneurs like her can bring about change in Abidjan.
If other young people get involved in green entrepreneurship, we will be able to make Ivory Coast, and even our African continent, a world that works to reduce atmospheric pollution. It involves the ecological impact and promoting a green city and an ecological city.
African cities will be at the forefront of climate disruption. Arona Diedu is one of the authors of the latest IPCC report on climate change. He says that Africa can achieve major improvements even before receiving the aid promised in the Paris Agreement. You don't need a lot of money for urban ecology, and it has a lasting impact. As for education and awareness raising, each state, city, and territory must come up with inclusive solutions to fight against the harmful effects of climate change. And that's what these students at Abidjan's university do. They are planting 30 trees on campus, and that's just the beginning. Samuel Conan organized the activity. He heads the Geography Students' Union here. They received the trees for free from a state company aligned with the Ivorian Environment Ministry, and he hopes to plant even more trees. In a few years, we won't be here, but those who come after us should really be able to enjoy the same conditions that we did. The Kumasi district in southeastern Abidjan is a concrete wasteland. Now the mayor has started to re-green some avenues. Samuel Conan and Edith Kwasi see this as a good sign. They are not alone in their efforts for a greener city.
In a recent program, we met a young man from Malawi who powers his village with a self-made mini hydroelectric plant driven by this same sort of inventive spirit. A young man from the Democratic Republic of Congo has set up his own environmentally friendly and easy-to-make generator. Take a look for yourself in this week's Doing Your Bit.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has one of the lowest rates of electrification in the world. The capital, Kinshasa, is notorious for its power outages. If you want electricity, you usually end up cranking up your own generator. There are generators all over the city, also generating air and noise pollution. Franci Kalonji wanted green power that didn't continually cut out. The 22-year-old began building a wind turbine in his family's backyard. He designed and funded everything himself. Franci Kalonji has a degree in mechanical engineering, and he knows a thing or two about inventing.
In the past, I used to create electric gadgets for fun, but as I grew older, I decided to design something that can help society.
The young man built the wind turbine using inexpensive components available in Kinshasa stores. Kalonji cut out each rotor blade from a basic PVC downpipe. The turbine produces 200 watts of electricity, without exhaust fumes or noise. That's enough for his home's electric lighting and charging his cell phone. Now, Franci Kalonji plans to make the next wind turbine bigger, big enough to supply his neighbors with electricity.
And how about you? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
Isn't it fascinating to see a drain pipe turn into a small wind turbine? Sometimes all it takes is a fresh idea applied to the old parts. And that is exactly the approach microbiologist Rin Ruben is taking to solve another serious problem.
Indeed, the Nigerian-born scientist is now a researcher at Leipzig University in Germany. He's trying to put an end to bacterial resistance to antibiotics. For that, he's adopting a natural approach using other tiny organisms. And his first guinea pigs are chickens.
Every day at 10 in the morning, it's time to get out with the hens. This organic farm offers microbiologist Ryan Rubin the chance to watch them from close quarters. It's normal to find a whole range of bacterial communities in hens' guts. The scientist wants to understand how this biome works. It could be key to increasing egg production here. Every 2 weeks, farmer Philip Fonsar rotates the brood and their solar-powered henhouse to new plots with freshly regrown grass. He doesn't use chemicals or antibiotics, but health problems still arise, especially when it rains.
Then the rain fills up the holes, and sometimes there might be some chicken poop in there, and that is unhealthy for the chickens. And that can have consequences on their health. And therefore we use probiotics or the vinegar stuff, and it's really helping.
Probiotics are one of Ryan Rubin's specialities. For his PhD, he even designed some himself, similar to the ones used here. They're a cocktail of good bacteria which regulate poultry intestines, helping them avoid disease.
We did a pathogen challenge where we looked for the deadliest poultry pathogen. It's known as Pasteurella mortacida. We experimentally induced or challenged the chicken with it, and then we tried to use antibiotics as well as our probiotics to treat the birds. And at the end of our finding, we discovered that we had only 5% mortality in probiotic supplemented bird. But for the antibiotic supplemented bird, we had 65% mortality. And that is the current stage that we are. Most of these pathogens are beginning to resist the action of these antibiotics.
A study published in academic journal Science shows that globally 73% of all antibiotics sold on Earth are used in animals raised for food, mostly to compensate for poor hygiene or to boost weight gain. The World Health Organization says this is one of the top 10 global public health threats, findings that are supported by Nigerian Ryan Rubin's research.
The next pandemic may be antibiotic resistance because it's a huge problem. And once we can't treat simple bacterial infections, then we are at high risk.
That's why so many specialists around the world are looking for ways to produce enough food in a sustainable fashion. From the field to the lab, Ryan Rubin is building on his postdoc at the German Center for Integrative Biodiversity Research in Leipzig, Germany. He's analysing how bacterial communities are formed in cheese.
If we're able to come up or to understand what happens with respect to time and space during the cheese ripening process, then we'll be able to now understand what happens within the human gut, within the animal gut, and within the environment over space and time.
Understanding biodiversity on a molecular level is a thriving area of research, and it's one of the specialities of this German institute. Dr. Stephanie Joburg from Uruguay says it needs a global perspective. 1 in 6 researchers here comes from abroad.
That means bringing information from different parts of the world. This is well known. The Global South does not produce as much research, right? And when it comes to ecology, that means that we don't understand the ecology of the Global South as well as we understand the ecology of the Global North.
Coming with an African mindset helps in a lot of ways. Number one, I have a different story, and I have a different way of finding solution. The Nigerian situation will always be in my heart, and I will always have this thought of impacting something. And how is Nigeria today?
Nigeria is good.
From Europe, Ryan Rubin collaborates with scientists back home, which also means dealing with problems he knows all too well, such as underfunding, lack of equipment, and even power cuts at Nigerian universities.
You cannot do research without electricity.
Here in Germany, I've kept my samples in -80 fridge for over 2 months, and they are safe, they are fine, and they can remain there for as long as I want. But I dare not try that in Nigeria.
This specific conference call is the start of another study on COVID-19 in pet animals.
Day by day, we are having the spike in the number of cases. And so there's the possibility of the transmission from positive patients who have pets, to their pet animals.
So actually, most of these emerging and re-emerging pathogens are coming from the animals. And the environment is not safe. The environment is implicated too. So this is the cycle.
A cycle that could be broken with the help of bacterial communities. They may be the solution to avoiding animal-human and animal environment contamination. These microorganisms will continue to be the focus of Ryan Rubin's research. And he's convinced that farmers also play an important role in keeping nature in balance.
Healthy food can only come from healthy soils and healthy animals, and I believe that makes quite some happy chickens and some very tasteful eggs.
Bacteria are the key problem in our next report as well. In 2015, a mass die-off nearly wiped out the Sega antelope of Kazakhstan. Almost 90% of the species was eliminated by bacterial infection, which was probably brought about by climate change. But following the catastrophe, scientists are now seeing a Sega baby boom. Let's find out what's happening.
In 2016, 1 year after the mass die-off of Saiga antelopes, a team of researchers returned to the Kazakh steppe. They wanted to find out how many Saiga had survived. The scientists spent days searching the Bedpakdala for the few remaining animals. This conservation area, about the size of France, was previously home to 240,000 Saiga, of which 200,000 died. It wasn't easy for expedition leader Stefan Zuter to return to this place of death.
I was really shocked when I saw how many animals were dying back in 2015. I was in the field myself and saw with my own eyes the first dead Saiga lying there.
British veterinarian and antelope expert Richard Koch also witnessed the disaster that was triggered by bacteria.
Something triggers the growth of the bacteria and it kills the Saiga. The second hypothesis is actually more of an environmental source of Pasteurella, which are ingested by the animal, causing an overload. And this would require an amoeba. This is a different organism, which is infected by the bacteria, and then at that wet season period in May, become active. The bacteria become active, and so the grazing animals ingest this and die as a consequence.
At the time, the expedition members feared it would lead to the total extinction of the Saiga antelope. But what happened amazed everyone: a baby boom in the steppe.
That's because at the age of 1, females usually bear 1 calf. As they age, they tend to have twins. And older, larger females may have triplets. That means they invest a lot in the production of offspring, and that allows the populations to recover very, very quickly, even after catastrophic events like in 2015.
The researchers now estimate the number of Saiga at 250,000 again, as many as before the mass die-off. The joy the many offspring bring is offset by concern. The Saiga are slowly returning to the area where the mass die-off began. Could death still be lurking there in the grass?
The possibility of this occurring again is very high, and the question is simply when and exactly what the trigger factors will be. But we can be reasonably certain this will relate to weather. It may be driven by climate. So the frequencies, if you like, of climate-related events which drive humidity, temperature, and then influence either the bacteria in the animal or the bacteria in the environment, it will happen again, I have no doubt.
But human beings also pose a huge threat to the Saiga. Poachers hunt the animals for sale to China, where their horns are considered to have healing properties. The Saiga's habitat is also shrinking. The Kazakh government wants to build a highway between the Caspian Sea and the Kazakh capital Nur-Sultan, passing right through Bedpakdala, even though there's an alternative route further north.
The Saiga get so stressed by every movement, and especially cars, even if they're far away on the horizon. They run away immediately. So if there was a road, it would be fatal.
For the moment, the Saiga have managed to come back from the brink. In the long term, however, their survival depends on whether the Kazakh steppe is left as an untouched paradise.
Bacteria may be threatening the Saiga, but for most species, the main threat comes from humans. Poaching and the illegal global trade in endangered species are big business, a black market for everything from rhinos to exotic reptiles to pangolins. Around half of all seizures of pangolin scales worldwide in 2019 could be traced to Nigeria. Sadly, some people still resort to hunting wild animals to provide for their families.
With cane rat captured, the hunters walk off with the plunder. These young men regularly go out hunting with their dogs. They sell what they catch at the local market and use the money to support their families. It's nothing unusual here in Nigeria. Young people know that the restrictions on hunting are rarely enforced, but Mark Ovoa wants to reduce the loss of wildlife. The vet has been coming to this rural area for the past 5 years. He and the men here have an arrangement founded on mutual trust.
I treat their animals for them free of charge, and in return, because I try not to exchange money as much as possible, in return, when they catch an animal, for example, and the animal has babies, that of course they can't eat those babies, it's useless for them. Usually they'll leave these babies to die, but this time around they get them and they call me.
Today, they have a young pangolin for the vet. It's a valuable find that will get them good money on the black market, but they've decided to give it to Mark Ovoa instead.
We give Mark the animals because he always helps us. If it weren't for him, we would have lost most of our dogs by now because of the kind of work our dogs do. Sometimes they'll be running, and one will hit his chest on a tree or fall into a trap that we set for the animals, and that can injure them. Once we tell Mark, he takes care of the dog until it recovers.
After the 4-hour round trip, the vet heads to his surgery on the edge of Lagos. He first examines the young animal. In China, pangolin scales are thought to have healing properties, and their meat is prized as delicacy. Nigeria plays a key role in illegal trafficking with this mammal in Africa. The small patient doesn't appear to be injured, but it will stay in Ofoa's care until it regains its strength. It will need special milk to get through the next few months. The vet finances everything with his own money. The snake recently underwent an operation. Mark Ofoa has no fear of the reptiles, which has earned him the nickname the Snake Man of Lagos.
I know I cannot relent. I know I can't rest on my oars. I know I have to shout more. I know I have to do more. I know I have to press more. I know I have to save more animals.
The local markets on the outskirts of Lagos offer a huge range of exotic animals. Mark Ofoa says officials hardly ever check on what is being sold. He tries to explain to the traders the impact that the illegal sales have on local wildlife. Bushmeat sells well here. A pangolin like this is worth $20. There are monkeys, large lizards, and small crocodiles and tortoises. They're sold both dead and alive. The traders remain undeterred.
I have been able to convince them that when they get these babies, they should not kill them, they should not throw them away, they should call me and I'll come and take it off them.
But it's not just the trade in bushmeat and illegal trafficking that's impacting biodiversity. Desmond Majakodumi is one of the best-known environmental activists in Nigeria. He says 95% of the country's forest has disappeared, and with it, a huge ecosystem that is now lost forever.
The scientists are very, very clear about it. We've entered one of the fastest extinction rates ever known to this planet, definitely ever known to mankind. And we're unraveling the very web of life because each of these creatures, each of these animals, they have a role to play.
That's why Mark Ofoa believes every animal counts. When those in his care have recovered, He releases them into a wildlife park or somewhere deep in the jungle. For Mark Ofwa, the sight of an animal back in its natural habitat is the greatest reward possible.
Absolutely. Every rewilded animal is a small victory in the battle for species protection. A good note to wrap up this week's edition of Echo Africa. I am Chris Elems in Lagos, Nigeria, and I hope you join us again next week. Bye for now.
And time for me to go as well. I am Sandra Twinovideo here in Kampala, Uganda. Do check us out on all our social media platforms and stay in touch. Till then, bye-bye.